I just had someone, an extremist from Iraq, a refugee, an asylum seeker in this country, death threat, make a death threat.
A few moments ago you just made that with your hand across your throat. It wasn't you?
No, it wasn't me.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. In this video, we're going to be looking at an incident where an Iraqi asylum seeker to the UK, apparently, comes into contact with a very vocal Jewish man named Joseph at London Hyde Park Speaker's Corner. So I'm going to start this video off by saying I actually know the Jewish man in this video. His name is Joseph. He's a very well-spoken, very friendly, very outgoing person who has not a violent instinct in his whole body. He comes to Speaker's Corner fairly infrequently, and he likes to advocate for his Jewish beliefs, as well as the politics associated with his Jewish beliefs, particularly Zionism. He is an advocate of Zionism, and as you can imagine, this goes down like a lead balloon in an area that is predominantly Muslim. Now, just because I don't agree with everything that Joseph says does not mean that I won't do a video about how he is treated at Speaker's Corner, because he's probably one of the most hated people there by Muslims in general, because of his very vocal Jewish/Zionist beliefs. And of course, it's always difficult to separate those when you're dealing with people that, I don't know, like, is it anti-Semitism? Is it anti-Zionism? Like, how do you distinguish between these two? Because they often seem to blend together, and you're kind of going to notice this in this video. But to give you all a taste as to how you can be expected to be treated if you're a vocal practicing Jew at Speaker's Corner, we can check out this video. So let's watch.
I just had someone, an extremist from Iraq, a refugee, an asylum seeker in this country, death threat, make a death threat.
This is the moment the man in question first approached me.
Hey, what happened to the ceasefire, man? Whether you like it or not, you kneel down to the Palestinians. Is that what the ceasefire is?
So I should probably give you a little context. I'm an Orthodox Jew, and I was visiting Speaker's Corner in London when an angry mob surrounded me and began hurling insults.
Only one language, you guys. I'm just the man of the COVID.
We need another Crusaders!
Come, Francis!
We need another Crusader!
We need the Christians to protect the Holy Land.
And what? They hate a Jew that doesn't take the knee. They hate that the Jew does not take the knee.
As you can see, Joseph proudly wears his Zionist clothing. Remember, what's worrying about this is that from many Muslims' perspective, this can be seen as a, I guess how would you describe it? As a act of instigation. Like he's instigating violence here somehow by wearing that shirt, because they hate that so much that many Muslims would understand this as, well, if he's saying these horrible things and he's openly advocating for Zionism, therefore I'm warranted to be physical in response. And many Muslims share that kind of view. Even if they don't do anything physical, it's still seen as a valid reason to just escalate to the next level. So, guy wears shirt you don't like and you find distasteful, if not downright disgusting. You then decide that the next best thing to do in response to this is not to tell him you don't like it, make your voice heard about your opinion on that matter, but no, you're going to go straight to, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z to you. I'm going to make death threats to you in response. That's, like, where did that come from? That is so out of field. You cannot say that just because someone wears a shirt you don't like, you can now escalate to threatening their life. That's not warranted whatsoever. But when there's crowds, and when there's a shared sentiment of this person is a vocal supporter of Israel, and to be honest with you, I actually don't even think you have to be a Zionist at this point. I think you can just be a vocal supporter of Israel, and that's sufficient to be put in this group of, you are the lowest form of person, so I can threaten to end your life without consequence, apparently. Because as you can imagine, the police, as far as I can see in this video, don't actually do anything if they're there. So that's nice.
This is Arab land, and we're going to take it. It's
We're-
not your land.
I will never pay the jizya. I will never pay. I will never be on TV. I will never be sagging
You're gonna be
rules.
there.
You're not
You're not gonna leave
humiliating
us
anyone.
jizya.
Oh, you're going to kill me. You're going to kill me.
No.
Let's see it. I'm here. Do it now.
You're not gonna be
Kill me now.
jizya.
Kill me now. Do it now, big man. Do it now. Do it now, big man. Because he said I'm not going to be here. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Your jihadi friends just murdered someone this week because they had views you didn't like. And here you are telling me that I'm not going to be here. So do something.
So what is the jizya, and yes, it is a funny name, that Joseph is referring to here, saying he'll never pay the jizya? In Islamic rule, the understanding is that if you're a Christian or a Jew, as Joseph is in this case, you have another option when it comes to being occupied by specifically Islamic forces. For anyone who's not a Christian or Jew, you can either become a Muslim or you can die. Those are your two choices. You don't get any more. But if you're fortunate enough to be a Christian or Jew, you get an extra choice to sweeten the deal that you totally have a choice in. You can choose to submit to your Islamic rulers, live a very restricted life where you can't build churches, you can't repair them, you have to give up your place, parts of society for Muslims if they ask of it from you, you can't drink alcohol, you can't eat pork, you can't... Basically, it's a very limited form of life. And then, you just live your life like that. Oh, and you also pay a tax, and that's specifically what the jizya is in reference to. It's the tax that you pay when you decide to live as a dhimmi, and a dhimmi is a person who chooses to pay the jizya. But Joseph isn't going to do that. The Muslim guy in this video just says, well, we wouldn't even give you that option, we'd just kill you. Which is lovely. That's such a loving act there.
What are you doing in the West Bank?
He's literally been advocating for violence since he arrived here.
For violence. You are the spokesman of the IDF over here. Yes?
I'm the spokesman of the IDF.
He is IDF, that guy. He is IDF.
Just to set the record straight, I'm actually not the IDF spokesman, in case you were wondering. And if I was, what would I be doing at Speaker's Corner? In fact, I've never been in the IDF or any military.
Now, this to me is really kind of scary, actually, because I think what he's doing is he's trying to give labels to Joseph to stir the crowd up, hoping to be provocative to lead to something else, right? Like, oh, this guy, he's the spokesman for the IDF. Really? And then when Joseph mocks him, saying, what do you want about? How am I the spokesman for the IDF? He changes it a little bit to say, oh, well, he is the IDF. The IDF being the Israel Defense Forces. You tend to see this a lot from a kind of strain of cultures that have been influenced by Islam. They tend to have this tendency towards conspiracy theories to justify views. So, like, the Jews control the weather. 9/11 was just Jews doing stuff somehow. The moon landing was the Jews. Okay, maybe they don't say that. The other common ones I hear are Christians are all paid by the Jews, which is hilarious. Just for reference, by the way, I do this for free. You'll notice there's no ads on this video. I don't make any money from this other than what people choose to give me. And other than the 50 grand that Joseph gives me on a weekly basis, I don't get any donations or any money from anyone. What's the other one we hear? Yeah, there's like ideas that the Jews or the Christians are secretly going to kill all the Muslims when they get the chance. That's another weirdly popular one. The idea that Christians specifically hate Muslims, but we pretend not to. There's a lot of conspiracy theories among Muslim groups.
IDF soldiers.
The journalist from Urban Scoop, whose footage I'm actually using, then confronted him.
Yeah, a few moments ago you just made that with your hand across your throat. It wasn't you?
Nah, it wasn't me.
Are you sure? Because we've got it on film.
Evidence.
On fabricated evidence.
Yes.
This reminds me of that song. What was it? It Wasn't Me? Was it by Shaggy or someone?
I even had her in the shower.
It wasn't me.
She even got me on camera.
It wasn't me.
It's the nerve, right? Keep in mind that the cameraman is someone by the name of Street Mike. And he's got this massive camera setup. He's got this huge... It's not like a little bitty camera. He's got this huge proper... He looks like he's a movie director. And he's carrying this around. So you're going to see him from miles away. And he makes a death threat on camera. And then moments later, he's interviewed about it. And he just thinks, oh, how do I get out of this? Oh, how do I retract these steps now that things have calmed down a bit? Now that tensions have died down? The crowd's dispersing a little bit. So things are a bit more quiet. How do I get out of this? It wasn't me. That's an IQ 200 level move there. Now this, believe it or not, I think is actually kind of moderate for what Joseph usually experiences when he goes to Speaker's Corner. I've seen him experience much worse than that. And keep in mind, you can disagree with what Joseph says, But the way that he conducts himself is perfectly reasonable. And if wearing a hoodie with a word on it is too much for you, and you think you now need to start threatening to kill the guy, I think you got problems. I think this shows how weak your mindset is, how weak your worldview is, and something needs to change in your life at this point. So the question is, what should we do about situations like this? Why do they happen? They happen, I think, because there is no backbone in the West at the moment in a secular paradigm to combat that kind of extremism that thinks it's permissible. Not only permissible, but actively supported, or at least passively supported by the state, by the institutions, to get away with just threatening to kill someone with consequence free. I don't think it's a mistake that people are questioned about their beliefs all the time by authorities in an attempt to counter extremism. But then when someone openly shows an act of extremism in a very public place, recorded by many different cameras, and it's not ambiguous, it's a very clear threat, nothing happens. That guy who was making those threats, he's been at Speaker's Corner before. He's had conversations with Joseph before. Has anything happened? Like, has the police said, hey, you're not allowed to be here, if we see you here we're going to kick you out? Nope. He's still coming. And that shows you that we're dealing with two-tier policing. On the one hand, we have a police force that is empowered to question the average person on the street about their beliefs, in case they may be harboring some extremist views. On the other hand, you have openly, I would describe this as just anti-Semitic, because I think even if Joseph wasn't an open advocate for Zionism, I think he would still be an open advocate for his own faith, for practicing Judaism, and I think they would absolutely hate that just as much as they hate open support for Israel, because I don't think in the Islamic paradigm there's actually a way of separating those two. They are basically the same. And this is why you see so many Muslims not even bother to hide the language and say Zionist, they just say Jew, because that's kind of what they're referring to. And I think you can see this regardless of your views on Israel and Gaza. I think you can be actually pretty anti-Israel and still come to these same conclusions, because, well, how else do you explain that people feel empowered to threaten Jewish people like this? Speaker's Corner needs to be better policed, and police need to start finding particular key individuals who incite, well, death threats. I mean, I was going to say antisocial behavior, breaking the peace, but that's not breaking the peace, it's just threatening to kill someone. I mean, I feel like that's like a few steps above, like a lot more serious than just being a bit loud after you've had a few drinks, I think it's a very different thing. For some reason, it's always kind of amazed me. I always thought you would have police out of uniform, looking like normal civilians, in Speaker's Corner, basically just being informants, finding people who are advocating for extremist ideas, and then just informing on them, and then police who are in their uniform can come and take them away. I always thought this would be something obviously they'd be doing. I don't think they actually do this anymore. Or if they did, I don't think they're doing it anymore. But I can't see any evidence that the police does this, because there's just so many known people who advocate very extreme, horrific things, who are predominantly Muslim, who are still there in 2025. And they've been there for years, if not decades. But they're still there, teaching the same things, threatening the same threats, and no one does anything about it. So how do you combat Islam? You have to go back to your traditions. People living in England, if not the whole of the UK, have a long tradition, going back hundreds of years, if not 1,000 years, of practicing and implementing our Christian faith. And through that, we had community, we had a growing society, we had shared values, shared traditions, shared customs, which are now eroding away because we're following this understanding that the secular West has imposed on us, and that doesn't seem to be doing us any favors. In fact, it seems to be openly benefiting people who are antithetical to our way of life. If we think that people are made in the image of God, and that people at some very deep and spiritual level are worthy of life and worthy of love, then a religion that fundamentally rejects that idea and says that actually God hates the disbelievers, he hates the kafir, he hates those who reject him, and he guides whom he wills, then there is no way you can be pluralistic with that. You can't be pluralistic with a culture that hates you. You can't be pluralistic with a culture that actively sees you as part of the outgroup, and that outgroup has no love for Allah, according to the Islamic paradigm. You can't be pluralistic with that. You can't be tolerant of that. But with the state of England and the UK, more broadly speaking, we don't have the strength of community and the backbone that we used to have. We need to abandon secular liberal values and return to traditional Christian values. Then you'll have a solid foundation from which to counter Islam. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're not a Christian, then today is the day. You can email me at chris@speakerscorner. My email is in the box down below. If you have any questions on Christianity, and I'll do my best to get back to you. I hope you all have an amazing day. God bless. Take care.